Hello and welcome to When Grooms Get Engaged, the podcast about a guy's perspective to wedding planning from two guys that are currently trying to survive their own. I'm Steve.
And I'm Chris, and each week we will talk about how we navigated a different part of the wedding planning journey, what we learned in the process, and what maybe we wished we had done differently. So, Steve, what are we talking about this week? And black or navy?
Chris, this week we are talking about the looks, the outfits, what you're going to wear. And the answer, Chris, is always black. But before we get onto that, just real quick, if you're enjoying this content, if you're liking what we say, if it's helping you out, like, subscribe, and share the podcast. So, Chris, it is black, and you are wearing a tuxedo because you're going ham, you're going all out, and you want to look fresh.
Well, what if I'm having a farmhouse chic wedding? Should I still go tuxedo?
Yes. So, really, you don't have to wear a tuxedo. But when it comes to wedding attire, you definitely have options between, just unmatching shirt, trousers, and a jacket. If you're a farmhouse wedding, for instance, you could do a suit, or you can go all the way up to a tuxedo. And Chris, I know that both of us chose a tuxedo for our weddings.
We did. And I think some general guidelines to kind of help everyone think about what they want for their own wedding is maybe first would be indoors or outdoors. And also then just like what's the venue type, right? Like, so I mentioned farmhouse chic. Probably looking at a slightly different vibe. You can still go super elevated, but it just might feel a little weird doing like full tuxedo, formal wear in that kind of venue. So I think kind of just thinking about where your venue is and if it's indoor or outdoors will kind of help guide you into what lane you kind of want to pick. What are your thoughts there?
That's actually a very good point. I didn't even think about it. So our venue was outdoors, but even before we did anything, I'm doing a tuxedo. Traditionally, you don't see tuxedos outdoors. But at that point, I was like, I don't care. It's happening. I'm going with a tuxedo. Chris, how about you? Why did you decide on a tuxedo?
I think both me and my fiance both wanted something. We wanted everyone to have an excuse to kind of dress up, right? So we kind of both had a similar vision, and that's what we stuck to. So we were kind of always looking for venues with that in mind. So that kind of also helped us make a decision with our venues ultimately.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, right? You want people to dress up. You want people to give an excuse to dress up. So you also have to, be dressed up to the nines. But Chris, let's maybe take a step back and kind of is there a difference between a tuxedo and a suit?
Obviously similar because they kind of have the same basic shapes, but ultimately very different in terms of cost and whether you probably own one or not. I think before our weddings, we both did not own our own tuxedos.
Definitely not.
Yeah. So it depends how easy you want to make it for your guests, but you have a lot of different colors. Tuxedos are traditionally black. They can also be white or navy, but your gold standard is black. And then just like the jacket, right, is also very important because tuxedo jackets have different accents, especially with the lapels and with the buttons. And then also with that is the type of shirt that's underneath as well. Because you probably have seen those shirts that have the tuxedo studs, which are like the traditionally black studs that replace the buttons on the shirt. So those are kind of some key differences.
Yeah. So the differences between tuxedos and suits are a lot of times in the accessories and the details. So, you mentioned the satin, right? So the jacket has satin lapels versus the same, material as the suit. On the pants and the trousers, you have satin running down the pant length. You also have on the trousers, there's no belt loops, right? Tuxedos are never to be worn with belts. Instead, they have waist adjusters on either side of the pant. And usually they're fitted to you, so you don't even need one. And let me think.
Or just going along with that, also suspenders are also.
Yes, suspenders are totally in for a tuxedo, depending on what kind of look you want to do. And it is one of the accessories. So so Chris, maybe let's tackle these one at a time. So starting with the color, essentially. Tuxedos are traditionally black. Right. And they're black with satin contrasting details on the lapels on the pocket square sometimes, and also on
Mhm.
the actual pockets on the jacket. You mentioned navy and white. Those are also not as traditional options for a tuxedo, but people still wear them. But you can find tuxedos in any color. They're just not
Mhm.
going to be worn in elevated venues, for instance.
Yeah, you're definitely making a statement if you go outside of those colors. But yeah, as you said, you can find them in any kind of color that you want, and some also like pattern
Mhm.
as well, which are kind of interesting. You see those a
Yeah,
lot like at
definitely.
the Oscars or like big gala events. You'll see people try to play with form and function there.
Yeah, yeah. So if you want to make a statement, um, by all means, like at that point, you're doing whatever you want to do, just as long as it looks good. But if you're looking for more of the traditional, black is traditional,
Hmm.
navy is kind of being used more as a playful color, and like you mentioned, white. So one of the other things to consider, Chris, you mentioned if it's indoor or outdoors, it's also time of day.
Hmm.
Traditionally, if you have an event that starts earlier, the style book says that you're okay going lighter colors. However, if you go later at night, it's black. It's darker colors than black. But navy's kind of like a bridge between that because the lapel and the details are black satin, so they still hew towards a darker shade.
Yeah, definitely. And I think so. I am trying to be more playful with mine, so I did more of a navy color. Um, Maybe more of a royal blue to navy color. So I think it's going to look really good in both the daytime
Mm-hmm.
or if we're outside for taking pictures. But then also as the evening goes on, I think it's going to look great in like more mood lighting or darker lighting. So I was thinking about both instances when I was designing my tuxedo.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then going down to, so we mentioned the jacket, so you have the satin details,
So
the
let's talk about
trousers.
lapels. Let's talk about
Hmm,
lapels.
okay,
So you
that's
kind of
fair.
have there are kind of three sets of lapels, I guess. So there's kind of the shawl, which is it's going to be really hard to describe. But it's kind of more one piece. It's not notched. There's nothing missing. It kind of almost looks like a scarf and kind of starts wide at the top and then tapers down.
It's
Um,
very smooth. Um,
yeah, very smooth.
yeah, it's rounded edges essentially.
Round, exactly. That's very well. That's very well put.
Um,
You have the peak lapel, which is kind of the bigger lapel. It's kind of also like one piece. There is no notch, but it's kind of bigger, wider. So good for people that have kind of like broader shoulders. Anybody can kind of rock it, but kind of good if you have kind of like wider shoulders or like a bigger back. Kind of like it's more dramatic, right? It's a bigger piece. And then you have like the notched lapel or slim lapel, which does have a little notch. It's a little bit thinner of a form, and it's kind of probably what I would say is the more modern version of the tuxedo. Is kind of have that more slim lapel.
yeah, and depending on how much of a statement you want to make, I guess, or how
Mm-hmm.
big you are, this you can kind of play around with the size of this if you go to the custom made suit. But if you're not sure what we're talking about, imagine a suit, that piece that's kind of folded over on itself, that drapes down into like the V, that's the lapel, right? And in a tuxedo, that piece is made out of satin. So it's a little bit like shiny and it kind of stands out. It's an off color from the rest of the material on the jacket. But yeah, you will have to make a decision on one of these. Personally, Chris, I do not like the shawl lapel. It's just,
I Yeah, I think we both came to an agreement on there. And then actually, I was not a huge fan of like the kind of like peak or wider lapel. But
mhm.
then after trying it on, I was like, okay, I can rock this. So I actually ultimately went with that design.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm trying to remember. I believe I also did peak, or did I do notch? Which is there's one that they don't normally do on tuxedos. I'm trying to remember which one it was. I gotta look at my tux. Probably should have been ready for this.
And we can follow up on the next episode.
Yeah, I'll follow up on next episode. But that is going to be one of the decisions that you make. And that going down to the trousers,
Yep.
a lot of these details will then follow suit. The satin will run down the length of the pants.
Yep.
The big difference is that there's no belt loops on
Mm-hmm.
tuxedo trousers. There's just these like little waist adjusters to kind of tuck the waist in or not.
And I definitely had it as part of the customization option. Like you don't have to do the line of satin along the leg, down the leg. It is more of a modern version to not do it that way, but the traditional tuxedo look is to have that satin strip from waist down to your foot.
Oh, did you do the set?
I did. I ultimately
Okay.
I was playful with the color, but then I wasn't. I went more like classic for all of the other elements.
I'm kind of a big stickler on these things. If you're gonna like call it one thing, do it what it is. Like, don't change it up too much. Like the satin, except not accessories, but the satin like outlines or like highlights, like that's what makes a tuxedo. If you don't, it just looks like a suit.
It
Honestly,
just looks like suit pants, exactly.
yeah. So, but going back up, the shirt. There's a lot of differences on the shirt. Starting with the collar. Now, tuxedo shorts, the most formal ones, these are like white tie events. And then if you want to, be like more formal on a black tie, you have the wingtip collar. And I think this is ugly, personally, just my opinion. And what this essentially is that it actually shows your bow tie, and it just has like little wingtips on the front that cover it up. But it shows the actual physical tie versus like a semi-spread collar that covers it up. So, Chris, are you doing a wingtip by chance?
Yeah, I don't know where the origin of this is from. I don't know if this is a modern play. I don't know if this is like how they used to do it way back when. I really don't, unfortunately, know the history. But I have to say, I absolutely hate to see the extra fabric or around the neck, the fabric of the tie or the bow tie. I just think it looks ugly. I want that hidden. I want that covered up by the collar.
Yeah, I think I was reading somewhere it plays some kind of like tricks with your face or like elongates something, but no, I don't like it. I'm not a fan. That's not what I'm doing. I'm happy to hear that you're not doing it as well.
Yeah, I just don't get it. So, I've never been a fan of like the wingtip, where also it's like kind of like a shorter collar where it kind of just flares out and it's like a shorter point. Just never was a fan of that.
But real quick, if you do like the wingtip, right, it's your day. Ignore us. You are going to have to learn how to tie a bow tie, because you cannot do a clip-on for the wingtip. It's going to look so bad. Since there's nothing covering it, you have nothing to hide the fact that you have a clip-on. It's just going to look tacky. So if you do a wingtip, make sure to also know how to tie a bow tie.
Are you Next up, experience?
Chris, on my actual wedding, there's video of it of our videographer photographer, but I think it took 5 guys maybe 45 minutes to tie my bow tie. It was a freaking disaster. I don't have these pictures yet. I cannot wait to get them. There's like literally like one guy is holding up the YouTube video. One guy is like translating it. One guy is trying to do what's happening. One guy is like the union boss, making sure everything gets done. Like it was a production.
Ultimate game of phone tag or telephone.
Oh man, and it was
SOS going out over the group chats. Unfortunately, I was too far away to help.
But, right, and then we had the photographers. I saw pictures. It was a little uneven in some pictures, but I was looking at the photographer. He's like, "Oh, this is great for the first like 5 minutes," and then like I can see on his face like, these idiots. Like, we're wasting so much time trying to tie this stupid bow tie. Oh man!
So guys out there, practice beforehand. Take a couple goes at it. Make sure you got it down before.
Yes, practice. It's not that easy. I thought since I knew how to tie a tie, this would be like the same thing. It's not.
Nope.
I mean, you can reuse some of the same like ideas, but it's completely different. But anyway, continuing on, the cuffs. Tuxedo shirts are always, French cuffs, right? So you need an actual cuff link on the shirt itself versus your normal, everyday dress shirt, which are, what are those called? Barrel cuffs, I think.
You just have the buttons like sewn in, right?
Yeah, exactly. So do not wear like a normal shirt with a tuxedo. It's going to look...
the French cuff, like the sleeve will like fold over back on itself, and then you use a separate button or fastener to close that part of the sleeve.
Yeah, so this actual cuff link is where you can kind of be a little playful.
Yep.
So for my cufflinks, I had essentially what looked like a manual transmission. That was the cufflink. People have done things that like are just like giant studs if they want to be blingy, just like a simple, black thing. Chris, I bought you pineapple cufflinks, which I'm hoping you decide to wear.
Yep, I brought them with me.
If not, friendship over, the worst.
Cancel the podcast.
Cancel the podcast. But yeah, with cufflinks, this is where you can kind of start putting in a little bit of personality.
Yeah, exactly. It's a point where, like, everything kind of is. Guys don't have a lot of ways to play with their outfit, right? You're kind of like choosing from three options, like all the way down the road, right? So your cufflinks, though, allow you to like add some flair, add some personality, so you can be as traditional or playful as you want. Yeah, as you said, like there's like transmission ones, there's some pretty nerdy ones out there, like infinity stones and all sorts of like crazy things you can do. So have some fun with it.
Yeah, and just real quick, a lot of those like more nerdy ones, they're going to be Etsy shop things. So if you need them immediately, probably not going to get it immediately. But like if you give yourself, maybe a month, like you can definitely get anything off Etsy, right? So look into that if you're interested.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
Yep, but Chris, in addition to the cufflinks, you also have the studs that go into the tuxedo shirt.
Yeah, very important. Otherwise, if you get a tuxedo shirt, you will not be able to button it without these. So very important. I would also maybe recommend, just with the cufflinks and the tuxedo shirt, maybe have a backup pair somewhere just in case one gets lost or you open one and it falls out or whatnot. So definitely have those on hand. Traditionally, I think it's 4 tuxedo studs, if I'm correct.
I believe that's
that
right.
go through the top 4 buttons of your shirt, and it acts like a button, but it's a fastener, and it adds a little bit more flair to it because it's going to be a black stud that's showing up instead of like a white button or a colored button. It's going to be like a black piece of metal.
Yeah, I think 4 is traditionally, but as people do not wear a vest as much or a cummerbund, I think they went down to 5 now, I want to say. Mm-hmm. You find those as well. But the biggest giveaway that your shirt is a tuxedo shirt is if it doesn't have buttons sewn in.
Yep.
If you're missing buttons, that's probably why. But Chris, the tuxedo shirts also have a bib, what's called a bib, sewn into the front. So I'm sure we've all bought white shirts, right? That we look on the rack and we're like, wow, this is a beautiful white color. And then you try it on and all you see is your body or like your undershirt, when you try on the shirt, because it's a little opaque. What the bib is, it's sewn in on the front part so that the shirt just looks pristine white, right? So that's why tuxedo shirts usually look very like white, very starchy, just very clean. It's because they have that bib.
Yeah, and it's going to add a little bit more flair and personality to your shirt as well, because traditionally they have pleats and some are more elaborate than others. So I kind of went on the more modern toned down version of the bib. I'm not sure what you did, but you can kind of get a lot of frills in there basically, or you can kind of be a little bit more toned down.
Yeah, so I don't know what mine is called. So I didn't like the pleats. The pleats are the traditional one that you think about, when you think about tux.
It's kind of like frills or like folded pieces of material to kind of give it more texture.
It looks like an organ to me.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's pretty much exactly what it looks like. I was like, I don't want to look like an organ.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't want it either.
Yeah. But no, what I did for my bib is it's like a textured material almost. I don't know exactly what it's called, but that's what I went with. And for people that are just listening that don't know what we're talking about, it's not an actual bib like a baby wears, right? But if you look at a tuxedo shirt, if you just pick it up and then you kind of put it like by any sort of light source, you will see that the middle of the shirt stays white while the rest of it becomes a little opaque. So just think of it, the bib as like 2 pieces of material essentially in like the chest area versus 1 anywhere else on the shirt. It's just to keep it white. But yeah, going down to the shoes, Chris, what did you kind of do for that?
So I think tuxedo shoes are traditionally patent leather, and they are a shinier material. So they are like almost mirror kind of glossy. You can be playful with that. You can also get like loafer style, which are also can be glossy, or they can also be like velvet fabric. So shoe wear, you can kind of go traditional, but you have some room to play with depending on, again, if you're indoor, outdoor, and also what the rest of your tuxedo design kind of calls for. You can kind of be playful with your footwear. What did you ultimately go with?
Yeah, so I went with velvet loafers since our event was outside. I feel like I had to dress down the tux a little bit. So I went velvet loafers with no-show socks. So the other thing with tuxedos is that you want black socks. Uh, no other colors. With tuxedo, you just want black everything, essentially.
Yeah, I think I'm going more the traditional route with the patent leather kind of glossy kind of look. Just because, again, my suit is more playful with color. So I wanted something kind of I didn't want my shoes to distract from the rest of the tux where I'm making more of a statement.
Yeah. And just real quick, the thing with the tux, the big thing is you kind of adhering to these rules. So you have shoes that are like, polished leather that still are not going to be as shiny as patent leather, right? Yeah. So anytime you're wearing a tuxedo, jacket and trousers that people know is a tuxedo, and you're wearing it with, let's say, like a plain white shirt, and a tie, that's going to look really weird, really bad. So you can't mix and match. When you go with a tuxedo, you have to follow the tuxedo rules. Versus going with a suit, you have to follow the suit rules. And one of the tuxedo rules is the patent leather shoes, right? Or currently velvet loafers, which seem to also be okay in a less formal setting. But let's say you're doing it like a full, black tie event, or white tie event. I don't think you can wear velvet loafers. Maybe I gotta look that up. But you don't want to wear like brown Oxfords, for instance. Like that's gonna look bad.
Yeah, exactly. Like your normal suit shoes will not work. So like Oxfords would not work and would look very weird with your tuxedo. So make sure that you are counting on the fact that you're going to have to get a special pair of shoes to go with your tuxedo.
Yeah. But thankfully, one thing that you can use between the tuxedo and the suit is the white pocket square. That one's the same. So you just saved yourself $20 there.
I bought a couple different types of pocket squares, to be honest. So I'm going to play around with a couple of them to see how they look.
Oh, wow. Chris, you're really going, changing it up here.
I got all whites, I got all black, and I got a white with a black trim. So we'll see how they
okay,
work
interesting.
Tuxedo.
One thing that you can't reuse, we mentioned it, Chris, is the tie. You do not want to wear a tie if you're wearing a tux.
Yeah, so traditional, you want to go bow tie. And also, you could go more English. So there's an English style where I think the tie is pinned. It's like a wider tie with a pin in it. You can look it up, but you don't really see that much in America. Your gold standard for a tuxedo is going to be a bow tie, and there's a couple different versions and ways that they like sit on your neck. So like you have your traditional like bow tie, which just kind of has the folded over edges. I'm a big fan of the diamond point bow tie, which kind of has a more pointed edge, and that's what I'm ultimately going with.
I couldn't tell you what mine was. I know I bought it from Charles Turret. Couldn't tell you what kind of bow tie it was. Couldn't tell you what kind of tie I did, because again, I didn't tie it. It was a production between me and 5 other guys to get it tied. But yes, if you're doing a tuxedo, you have to do a bow tie. If you're doing a suit, you can also do a bow tie. You can definitely elevate a suit with a bow tie. You cannot dress down a tux with a normal tie, though. Just remember that. And then finally, there's no belt, but you can do suspenders if you wanted to, or a cummerbund. Now, a cummerbund is...
Chris, I want you to educate me. I know of these things, but I don't know what they do.
I have no idea either. It's okay. So the idea is that it's like I have no idea. Honestly, I've seen pictures of it. I know I didn't want it. It's like fabric and material that kind of like loops around your belt, so that the idea is that you never see point of your shirt without studs into your pants. It like smooths out the look and like evens it out or something.
Yeah, so it's supposed to go around your waist.
Yes.
And it's supposed to complement the tuxedo and the look of the tuxedo. So it's another piece of like satin fabric that generally goes across like your waist. But it covers more material than like a belt, right? So it'll go above your actual waist of your pants and kind of sit a little bit below. And what it's I guess what I think it's designed for is to kind of prevent that bunching. Like when you wear a suit sometimes, like where your shirt
Mm-hmm.
meets your pants, sometimes there can be bunching or, creases that start to form as you sit up, sit down, sit up, sit down. And that cummerbund is supposed to kind of hide that like bunching that happens in that area.
Yeah, so you can wear that, or you can also wear a vest, which will essentially do a similar thing. Chris, I know I didn't do either because weddings in Greece and it would have been hot.
I'm a big proponent of a vest. I love vests. I love suit vests. I am not ultimately doing it for the wedding, but I'm a big proponent. I think it adds something to the outfit. And then also what's nice about it is that you can then take off the jacket, right, as you're dancing or get hot, and you still like have that kind of more formal look. But you've ditched the jacket, you've ditched that extra layer once things like start to warm up. So big proponent of vests.
Mm-hmm. But just know, if this is something you do want to do, it'll probably add another about, 100, $150 to your outfit, cummerbund or a vest. And with the vest, especially, you don't like buy a suit and then, 2 months later, just like buy a vest. You want the vest to be made with the same material as your suit so it all matches. Because if your vest is like slightly off, you may think it's not noticeable, but it always is, and then it's going to drive you nuts, and it's not going to look good. So before you order, make sure to decide if you want the vest or not.
Yeah, get them together. They need to match. People will be able to tell if you don't.
Mm-hmm. So Chris, now that we kind of, I guess, highlighted some of these differences, where would one go about buying these items, and how much probably would they cost?
Wow, it could be as expensive as you want it to be.
Yeah, honestly, that's true. Sky's the limit.
Like if you go off the rack and you're not getting anything tailored or custom made, it's going to be in that, I don't know, I would say around 300-ish starting price point. To higher, depending on where you're going and what you're getting. But there's definitely a lot of custom options available to you. But just starting with off the rack, you want to look at your big department stores, your Macy's, your Nordstroms, Bloomingdale's, Saks Fifth Avenue. Look at those department stores, see what they got, and maybe something that will fit you right off the rack and can save you some extra stuff.
Yeah. So each department store will have their like price points. So like Macy's will be cheaper than Nordstrom's, right? Which will be similar to Bloomingdale's, which will be cheaper than Saks. Like you said, $300 is probably what you can find a suit for at like Macy's on sale, or like a Nordstrom rack, or like a Saks off Fifth, like the outlet stores for those brands. And just know what you're getting with a, $300 suit. You are at most getting something that fits okay. You are not getting like any good material. And most importantly, you're getting a fused suit. Now, when it comes to suit construction, you have full canvas, half canvas, or fused. And fused is essentially like the worst way to make it. It's the cheapest way and it's the quickest way. And essentially what this is the actual material of the suit, right? The front and back of the jacket itself is fused together. There's like a piece of wool in the middle, and then it's kind of like fused together with glue. So what this does is it makes it very stiff, and it doesn't really like drape on your body that well. As opposed to when you go with the full canvas, there is a piece of floating wool, and it's like stitched into the suit so that as you put it on, it kind of like hugs your body and drapes where it needs to. And half canvas is like only, in the important areas, and the rest of the suit is fused. So at the lower level, and unless a suit is telling you what it is, just imagine it's fused, Yeah,
that's going to be the default.
Yeah. And then as you get more and more expensive, it will not be fused. So like I know, okay, so for instance, at Nordstrom and at Macy's, at Macy's specifically, their like highest price suits are these like Hugo Boss suits that are like $1,000, right? Full price. And they don't mention anything if they're like full canvas, half canvas. So I think they're like fused suits, I want to say. but the actual like fit is pretty good, but the quality is shit. So at the end of the day, you don't want to just shop for a name brand that because then they can sell something worse that you're going to overpay for just because of the name. So because there's such variation on the cost, this is where you're going to want to do some research and shop around.
Yeah, give yourself time to shop around. Also, something to know about like off the rack, I guess. It's not going to be, you can buy it off the rack and then potentially get it tailored, which is good. But just give yourself like time. Please do this earlier on than you think you might need to. 2 to 3 month mark. I would say more like the 3 month mark. Start like really kind of like looking at options and narrowing down your choices, so that you have time to get it tailored, and also potentially if you're going to go the custom route, you have time to go full custom.
So Chris, now that we're talking about not off the rack but custom, what exactly does that mean?
So you can go into stores like Indochino or Suit Supply, and kind of design your tuxedo from the ground up, from picking fabric and color to the interior lining, the type of lapel, to the type of tuxedo shirt, and whether you want that monogram. And obviously they will measure you and tailor it so that it's to your specific body type. So it's gonna fit you like a glove.
Yes. So here's the thing with this. All these companies, they offer online ordering. Whatever you do not do that.
Do not do that.
I have gone down a Reddit rabbit hole when I first started like researching this on horror stories of people like getting their terrible suits from like Indochino or like Suit Supply or whatever, and then you like scroll down 5 messages and you realize, oh yeah, they like self-measure themselves and send them the measurements. So like it was just a hodgepodge garbage, So if you do want to make a like made to measure, you want to go in the store and have someone measure you. That is going to give you the highest probability of having something that actually fits. Do not do this yourself.
Take the extra time, get it professionally done. It's gonna save you a lot of headache in case you make a mistake and have to return it and everything. Just try to go to a location, get it professionally done. And if you're going the custom route, you might as well get professionally measured and just go with the full 9.
Yeah. So this price point will be a little bit higher. I think with sales, like Indochinos will start at like $450, maybe, give or take. And you kind of just go up from there. And you also want to give yourself at least. So here's the thing: they will return the suit to you in 3 to 4 weeks. But if you need any like last minute alterations, like Chris, like you mentioned, give yourself 45 days to maybe 2 months from like beginning to end, just to make sure everything fits. Right, you're working out, so maybe you start getting a little bit more swole, so you got to add some, or maybe slimming down, so you got to take in the pants a little bit. So give yourself time for any last minute adjustments. But Chris, I believe we both went with the made to measure.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, yes, you can find deals and you might be able to get it for like $500 or $600, but kind of if you're doing just basic customization, you're kind of going that route. I think you should kind of have in your mind that you're probably looking at like $1,000, $1,200, kind of, maybe a little bit higher ballpark area of cost when you go this customization.
Yeah, and I'm just going to do a quick plug for Suit Supply because that's where I went to get mine. They have a tuxedo package. So real quick, Suit Supply all has the custom, but it also has off-the-rack suits, which is really nice. If you just think quick, you can just go there, pick one up. But they have a tuxedo package, which for $1,000, you get the tuxedo, you get the shirt, you get the studs, you get the shoes, you get the bow tie, and you also get the pocket square. And like the tuxedo is a decent quality. It's half canvas. You have to probably throw another $100 in it to like tailor it to like how you want. For $1,100, it's not a bad deal at all.
They have a great showroom in downtown Chicago, so I can definitely recommend them.
Yeah, I mean you'll get coffee at least. So there you go.
Exactly. Yeah, great little rooftop and get a coffee. It's great.
Dude, that rooftop is so nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
I asked the guy, I'm like, do you guys ever do events up here? He's like, yeah, people rent it out. I'm like, that's amazing. Awesome. It's beautiful. And then the last option, Chris, is rentals. So Men's Warehouse, and then recently the black tuxedo I just tried for your wedding.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the black tux. They do a good job. They will like you kind of put in your measurements or basic like they'll ask for like what do you traditionally wear for like your shirt sizes or your pant sizes, and kind of use an algorithm to guesstimate like where you should be at for their tuxedos. What I like about it, it's pretty reasonable. So you're looking at maybe like 200-ish, depending on like all the bells and whistles that you want. But they also offer some more playful designs than just your traditional black, right? They have like some textured tuxedos that are still black, or they also have some like dark navy tuxedos. You can get shoes, shirts, studs, like everything through them. They'll ship it to you. You try it on. If anything doesn't fit properly, then you can tell them like what specifically is the issue. Ship it back to them expedited, and then they'll send something back to you very, very quickly. And then generally it's right the second time. I've used them for I think 4 or 5 different weddings, and really, really like it. Also, if you get something and you want it slightly more tailored, like it fits well, but you just want a slightly better shape, they recommend taking it to a dry cleaners, and your dry cleaner can actually do a temporary kind of tailoring so that it's more fitting to you, and that way they can always like then reverse that tailoring when you return it. So it's very flexible, very easy, and very affordable.
Yeah, just real quick, because I had never used them until your wedding, Chris. And having used Men's Warehouse many, many times in the past, I will just tell you, at the same price point as Men's Warehouse, there is zero reason not to go to the Black Tux if it's not available to you. Just the actual experience in the showroom is better. The actual quality of the suit just feels so much nicer. You can tell it hasn't been like used and reused for like 50 million rentals before you.
Mm-hmm.
The fit is like a more modern fitted European cut, I would say, versus Men's Warehouse is like more boxy cut, you know? And just in general, like, yeah, I was really impressed. Like, I thought it was so much better than Men's Warehouse. I was like, damn, wow, this is so much better.
Yeah, and you can also plan your entire wedding party. So, like, you can get your own tuxedo with them, and then build out your party, your groomsmen's outfits on there as well. And then if you have X number of like groomsmen who get their tuxedo through the black tux, then like yours becomes free. So a little bit extra incentive, especially have like a larger party. You know, if you're having like 5 to 8 guys, that way you can kind of get a little bit of a discount or a free tux through them for your special day and save some money.
Mm-hmm. Just word of caution real quick on the rentals. They have pretty strict guidelines on returning the stuff. So if your wedding is, I don't know, overseas and you have no way of shipping this thing back, might not be the way to go. I know Men's Warehouse is like the next day or within the next 2 days. The Black Tux, Chris, I think was 3 days. Either way, these are pretty tight turnarounds. So if you are getting a rental, just kind of plan around how you're going to return it as well.
Yeah, that's a good call out. I think for the last wedding that we went to that used Men's Warehouse, I almost didn't meet that deadline. Yeah, just be careful, especially if it's like a Friday wedding. You want to get it back to them on like that Sunday or Monday, just to make sure you review their policies. But it is a very quick turnaround, so don't get too hungover the next day and you're not able to return your tux.
I am convinced that quick turnaround is how they actually make money off these things. You know,
interesting. Yeah, I could see that.
Because like it's not an insignificant, I forgot the exact amount, but it's like something that's enough to just be annoying, you know, and then it just kind of like compounds and adds up. And it's for this like crappy ass suit. Just don't get me started. Obviously, I've been here before. You know, you had a great wedding, you're hungover the next day, and Men's Warehouse closes at 4 by you or whatever, and then you're just like SOL.
Didn't you for like $60 or something? I don't know.
Right? It's like, okay, I could spend another $40 to just buy the suit outright. Like, I don't know what to tell you. It's so dumb. Anyway.
Yeah, but definitely, those are like the 3 main options that you have. So, yeah, you don't have to buy it. Also, just a quick note, whatever you decide, make sure that you include what kind of attire you want your guests to be wearing on the invitations, on your website. Just kind of make sure everyone knows. So, there's different things you can do. You can just say like black tie, or you can say black tie encouraged, black tie optional. What's the other ones, like dress?
It's dressy casual. It's cocktail attire.
Cocktail attire, yeah, that's the other one.
It's weird. There's a lot of ways to say the same thing. So as you were talking about this, a lot of invites I've seen is black tie optional. But Chris, I think black tie encouraged is a much better way of writing that. Because it tells people that, like, yes, it's not the end of the world if you're not a black tie, but we want you in black tie, As opposed to black tie optional. I was read that, I was like, well, they'd be happy if I'm in black tie, but it's fine.
Exactly.
To me, that's the same dress code. Just one is being like, hey, just try and be in black tie if you can. Thanks.
Yeah, it's setting a higher expectation,
a much clearer message.
Yes.
So yeah, if you can make your message clearer, that's definitely going to be much better.
Because most people are not going to want to, like, a lot of people don't have their own tux. A lot of people might not want to rent them. So if you do black tie optional, even though it seems like it's 50-50, it's probably going to skew like 70-30 into the regular like suit range versus a tuxedo. So just kind of expect that.
Yeah, and I think guys are very, I guess, scared is not the right word, but like hesitant about what exactly a tuxedo means. Tuxedo is made the same exact way as a suit is made, right? When you start shopping, you'll notice that the suits and the tuxedos cost pretty much the same amount of money. The actual like cost, production process for these things like don't really change, honestly. So like the price of a tuxedo versus the price of the suit will not be that different. What'll be different is that you just won't have as many places to wear the tuxedo. But I will say, it's just nice to have a black tuxedo in your closet because you never know when you're going to be called on to be James Bond, and then you're ready when that happens.
So be ready, everybody.
So be ready. Well, Chris, it sounds like you're ready. I was ready. It felt amazing to be James Bond for a night. And I can't wait to see you in your tux.
I'm excited. Can't wait.
Perfect. Well, Chris, thanks for hanging out. Everyone, thanks for listening. And we'll see you all next week.
See you next episode, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, Steve.